13 rules that former presidents have to follow after leaving office. Being President of the United States is one of the most coveted jobs in the country, as evidenced by the many candidates we hear from every election year. Getting to choose the direction of the country is pretty appealing, even if it is a ton of work to both get the job and to actually do it. But one thing no one tells you is that the job doesn't stop when the presidency is over. Even former presidents are expected to do a lot, like attend events, raise funds, give speeches, and do tons of interviews about what it was like to be commander-in-chief. The job also stays with them in other ways, too, because once someone stops being president, they're part of an elite club of ex-presidents for the rest of their life. And that also comes with a lot of restrictions. Yeah, just because you were the commander-in-chief, that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. If you are yet to subscribe to this channel, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscription button and smash the like button until it turns green. This will be greatly appreciated. From driving cars to using cell phones, these are the rules that former presidents have to follow. 13. They must have their calls and tech usage monitored. We all assume that the government is listening to everything we do these days, especially after numerous scandals have come up in the last 2 decades where the government was caught doing exactly that by surveilling U.S. citizens without a warrant. The intelligence community has since tried to clean up its image by being more transparent about this, and it now requires warrants in many situations. However, the Secret Service often gets exceptions to these rules in cases relating to the security of current and former presidents. The Secret Service has pretty sweeping jurisdiction over keeping former presidents safe, whether that's from threatening phone calls, suspicious tweets, or anything in between. Routinely monitoring a president or former president's communications is an invasive but necessary activity the Secret Service has to undertake to ensure the security of those they are sworn to protect. 12. Former presidents must have their mail searched. Former presidents don't have much privacy, and those snoopy Secret Service agents even get to paw through their mail. Yeah, that's right, an ex-president's regular old snail mail, and packages must be examined by agents before they can be delivered. That may sound like overkill, but they've caught several dangerous deliveries by doing this, even as recently as 2018. According to Bloomberg Law, the Secret Service successfully identified explosives en route to former Presidents Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, among other VIP targets. 11. They never go anywhere alone. Even after they leave office, presidents have a 24/7 Secret Service detail. These agents are often swapped out and moved around, so ex-presidents are likely to be surrounded by strangers for the rest of their life. Boundaries are not a thing. The Secret Service is right there when spouses argue or during holiday dinners. 10. Staying at the presidential townhouse. When visiting Washington, D.C., former presidents are not obliged to stay at the presidential townhouse, but are often encouraged to do so because the house already has security protocols worked out. In fact, the basement of the house is designed especially for security detail. The presidential townhouse is only a minute's walk away from the White House. It was Richard Nixon who had it built to provide a stay for former presidents. George H.W. Bush used it most often, even though his wife Barbara did not like the house at all because of its Spartan interior design. The house was extensively renovated when his son, George H. Bush, was president. 9. Traveling for diplomatic purposes. One of the duties former presidents have to uphold after their time in the office is traveling. Former presidents travel as goodwill ambassadors of the nation, and they're upholding their duties in diplomatic relations between countries. For that purpose, they have an annual budget of $1 million they can use. Their spouses have a $50,000 yearly traveling budget. Former presidents also have the right to diplomatic passports, meaning that they can avoid all the hassle of obtaining visas for some countries. 8. Following the no-drive rule. Probably the most frustrating rule former presidents must follow is staying away from public roads. This rule became public when George H. Bush revealed to Jay Leno in an interview that he had not driven on a public road in more than 25 years. Lyndon Johnson was the last president to drive on a public road. The assassination of John F. Kennedy was a turning point in working out this security measure. Still, former presidents often enjoy driving in secluded and private areas. Ronald Reagan, for example, is famous for driving his favorite Jeep in the area of his private ranch. 7. Establishing a presidential library. Establishing a presidential library is encouraged by the Presidential Libraries Act. passed in 1955. Because their actions and work in the office are considered a public service, former presidents can establish a library of presidential papers, documents, and any other written material considered important for the nation's history. Libraries are usually open to the public, and the official opening ceremony can serve the purpose of a public relations event for the former president. Some of the former presidents choose to be buried on the premises. 6. Having funding for the transition period. Once they leave office, they have a 6-month transition period during which they need to establish a new office and staff. These are considered business affairs and government matters, so former presidents receive funding to cover the costs. Unlike other financial perks, this one is provided even for those former presidents who resigned from the office. 5. Staying up to date with national security briefings. Even though they're no longer presidents, it is a tradition to consider former presidents as sources of wisdom and useful political advice. Because of this, former presidents regularly receive national security briefings to stay up to date with current security issues. If needed, the office of the president will ask for their advice, or they can reach out to the sitting president and offer one. 4. Having a permanent secret protection all their life. Former presidents receive a permanent secret service. They have the right to choose to what extent they want to be protected, but it is highly uncommon for the former president to refuse this type of protection. To this date, Richard Nixon is the only former president who stopped using Secret Service. This type of protection also extends to former presidents' immediate family members. Their children have the right to full security until they're 16. The costs of this benefit are entirely classified. 3. Not having health benefits unless they qualify. At the end of the day, the presidency is still a job and the president is a government employee. This means that former presidents have the right to keep their government health benefits. Still, as is the case for other federal employees, there is a requirement they have to be registered as federal employees for at least 5 years to qualify for benefits. In case they served only one term and did not hold another federal position, former presidents will not be able to qualify for official health benefits. 2. Having a lifetime pension. Lifetime pension is obligatory for former presidents as it is mandated by the Former Presidents Act. The rate of presidential pension is fixed and it usually grows annually due to inflation. The pension serves more of a role of an allowance, in addition to travel, office, and security costs. In 2017, the annual pension was $207,800. When Harry Truman left office back in 1953, he and his family were practically broke. It was then decided that the pensions should serve the role of the salary for former presidents to maintain the dignity of U.S. presidency. 1. Having a state funeral. In case former presidents do not make an official decision on the type of funeral, it is up to their immediate family to choose whether they will have an official ceremony of a state funeral. In case they choose so, State Department manages the full protocol of the event, security detail, seating charts, procession arrangement, and others ally most be worked out to a single detail, as this type of funeral is also a political event. Other world leaders and important public figures usually attend the funeral. If a former president doesn't like the rules, there's one solution. So what's a former president to do if they get sick of all these rules and stipulations they have to follow? Why even be president if you don't get to spend your retirement years doing whatever you feel like, right? Well, there's a way they can get out of having to deal with all of this and go back to how things were before they took office. By declining the Secret Service detail, former President Richard Nixon actually did this in his later years, though the reason he gave was to save the government some money. According to the New York Times, then in 2017, President Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., willingly declined Secret Service protection, as reported by the New York Times, citing privacy as his reason for doing so. While the Secret Service heavily discourages protectees from choosing to do this, it's absolutely an option if a president ever wants to drive their own car again.